Art Collins here. In the course of doing some research on an idea, I came up with some stats that were pretty unexpected, pretty exciting, and the first thing I think of if I'm that excited about something is why not share them with my friends out there? That would be you, of course. So we're going to look at the most momentum-prone 5-minute bar in every half hour. We're grouping the 5-minute bars into 30 minutes. You got 6 5-minute bars that go from 8:30 through 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock through 9:30, 9:30 through 10 o'clock, etc., etc. We're looking at 5-minute bars, day sessions only, 8:30 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. Central Time. And again, we're going to pay attention to their position within the 30-minute segments. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And between 9 o'clock a.m. Central and 2:30, the volume, we're going to look at volume first, is individually tallied for each position within that 30-minute time frame. In other words, we're going to look at between 9 o'clock and 2:30, we're going to look at the bars that go from 00 to 05 after, or 30 to 05 after. The first 5-minute bar within those 30-minute segments. Then we're going to look at the second one, the ones that go from 05 to 10 and from 35 to 40. Okay? So you're going to get 6 of them. We're going to test each position individually. And this is what came up in the S&P. Okay? So this is the total volume of a 10-year study between the beginning of 2010 and mid-year of last year, 2019, June 30th. And in the first bars within those 30 minutes, you can see, as you look down, that you have the highest volume. And for the last bar, the ones that occur in the 5 minutes just before the 30-minute session changes over, in other words, 25 after to 30 after, or 55 after the hour to the top of the hour, that gives you the lowest volume. But the really interesting thing is, that could just be a fluke. One is going to have to be higher than the other. But the really interesting thing is, as you go down in order, it successively gets lower. Highest, second highest, third highest, fourth highest, fifth, sixth. And I found that fascinating. So I did what I always do. I compared it in the other markets. Same deal in the Dow, the NASDAQ, and the Russell. So that made me think that must mean that momentum is really the best right after the top and the very bottom of the hours, right? Your bar sizes probably figure to be the biggest then, and I was right. This is, again, the total of 10 years of range size all added together for the first bars of the 30 minutes, the last bars, and everything in between. And again, it's a successive stair step downward. Now, this was a pretty time-consuming exercise, so you'll forgive me if I didn't do the usual 5-market comparison. Looking at thousands and thousands of trials, so I'm pretty convinced it's valid. So what can that do for us? Well, admittedly, it's got to be a very small edge, right? But it's such a persistent one that might behoove us to keep it in mind. So what you're looking at here is an optimization study of entering at a certain time of day in relation to the opening price. You've seen me do this before. If you're above the opening price of the day, the 8:30 Central Time opening price day session, then you want to be an immediate buyer. If you're below it, you want to be a seller. And these are all different times of day in succession. Enter the trade, exit it on the close. So number 5 here corresponds to 9 o'clock, 9:05, 9:10, 15, 20, 25. I'm sorry that this, it's not easy to label this. This is just what TradeStation spits out at me. But just know that we're starting at 9 o'clock and going every 5 minutes thereafter. And what I've circled here are the times that are right after the hour or the half hour. The first bar within the first 5 minutes within the 30-minute bar. You can see here the first one from 9 o'clock to 9:05. Far and away the best performer, the only one that's positive versus all the others. You don't get that same symmetry in the 9:30 one, but you do again in the 10 o'clock one. Not the 10:30, but the 11, yes. And the 11:30, yes. And where it doesn't give you number 1, it's, like in the top 2 or 3. So, I mean, there is definitely a pronounced bias there. So, I would say your takeaways would be there's a special market participation at the start of each 30-minute bar. It results in the highest volume and range size at that time. And as you move through the first 6 positions, both the volumes and the range sizes get successively smaller. I'll fire my editor there for volume. And this is admittedly a small but very consistent edge. And I would assert it's worth knowing, especially when you're designing time-specific entry systems, which I have a few of those. All right. Appreciate you joining me. Keep your eye out for this. And thanks for joining me.